celestial beings, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I actually have a special guest. It is my good friend, Latoya. And Latoya is an intuitive. She is an old soul. She also has two YouTube channels that she's currently working on. Her first one, Latoya Brinson, is her channel, and I'll link them all in the description box too for you guys. You can get right over to them. But on her personal channel, she shares her personal journey, her spiritual journey, and basically, I feel like anything that you really feel passionate about and personal. So yeah, it's great. So she shares those on her personal channel, Latoya Brinson, and then she has a second channel, which is the You and Family, that she shares with her fiance, the Marcus. And they're awesome on that too. They have some really fun videos, so you can go check that channel out too. It's going to be in the description box below. But today, me and Latoya are going to tackle the subject of shadow work. It's a big subject, but I feel like for us, we wanted to do kind of like a top 10 survival guide tips of shadow work. We've both been through some shadow work ourselves over the past couple of years or more. So today we wanted to run through some of the tips that we had for you guys of what we felt would be like most helpful, of what we wish we kind of knew, or some guidance that we wish we had while doing shadow work ourselves. So I felt like we should maybe start by just kind of like defining what shadow work meant to us, or kind of the meaning behind shadow work, and just kind of give a quick definition based on our experiences, kind of like what we see as shadow work. So did you want to start out, Latoya, and just kind of share your thoughts on that?
Oh, sure. And thank you for having me on your channel. Like,
Yes, of course.
okay, so shadow work for me, like, kind of what I went through was parts of myself that, like, like was hitting, or like parts of myself that I didn't like, because that the shadow work is basically like kind of the things that you need to work through that, kind of surface up to kind of help you heal. So for me, definitely like everything that was kind of boiling up at the same time, like the things that I didn't like want to show people, that was tough. So I feel like that's kind of like for me, what shadow work is. It's just working through those parts that are just like you kind of don't like, and that will help you heal. So
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, some of it like happens kind of naturally and organically, where like these shadows or parts of ourselves that we didn't know, either we were hiding from like ourselves or from other people, kind of like coming up. And yeah, I totally agree. Shadow work is something where, maybe you felt like you had to hide parts of yourself, or like you felt like they were wrong, or feelings that like I was afraid of, or things that I didn't want to face, like bringing those to light, facing them, and using it to grow and expand. And yeah, for me, like the more I kind of dive into those, the stronger I get, and also the better I feel in general. So I think it's all kind of part of the spiritual journey. If you not only have to face like the positive and the light side of things, but also like diving into the shadows and giving those their due attention at the same time. So totally. Yeah, it's a difficult process. But I also think like after we go through these, I think it won't be as scary maybe for some people who are just kind of starting this journey. And also feel free to leave comments down below of kind of what you feel shadow work means to you guys, or your experiences with shadow work in general. So awesome. Okay, so let's start with number one. So we felt that number one would be, and these are not in any like specific order of priority, but more so kind of like naturally how they came to us. But we felt the first one would be really take your time with shadow work. So how do you
yeah.
feel about that?
Oh my goodness. I feel like that would be like the top one. Like that's not shadow work is not something that you could rush through. Especially like you don't know when it could happen in your life, or even like when it will typically end, but you definitely need to like go through it. Like it's something that you have to just kind of like work through. You can't rush it, because I don't think if you did that, like I don't want to say get the results, but you wouldn't get that type of like healing, or like that progression in your spiritual journey that you should, if you just kind of like, I don't even, what do you think? Like, I don't even think you could rush through that, could you?
I know, right? It's like your guides, like spirit. I don't think they would even let you do it, right? Like you're
Yes.
like, hang on, like you have more work to do. Like,
Yeah.
that's why, yeah, it is such like a natural thing. But sometimes I guess like we want to rush it too. Like, like your mind or like you want to kind of get through something and it's okay if it takes more time.
Yeah.
It's normal. So yeah, it's like take your time with it and don't expect to, I guess like it happens and I'm sure people move through different energy at different speeds, but just expect, to like take your time, like you're saying, exactly, like you can't rush it and it's probably better if we don't. um so yeah, 100%. It's like you probably won't be able to rush through it because when you're really in it, every little step, every little thing that you go through and experience is all like part of the journey. So you wouldn't want to reach that destination. And kind of like shadow work is never really over. I feel like, would you agree? Like
No, it's
it's
not.
an ongoing process.
It's ongoing.
But yeah. So which leads me to the number two, which is what I thought it was, which is and I'm just looking down at my notes for anybody wondering, but which is that the process is worth it though, which I think like, even though it can be rough at times, it's worth it in the long run, or it's worth every step of the process, I
Yeah,
would say. But
definitely. I totally agree because, like, sometimes we get so stuck. And then, like, once you go through, like, that ugly phase, like, you actually come out on the other side. Like you say, you come out stronger. And so, yeah, it's definitely worth it. And you have this, like, I don't want to say, I don't know, it feels like badge of honor. Like, yeah, I did that. I can. So if this comes up again, I know how to navigate through it. So, like, you actually can like handle like a certain event or anything like triggering because you already gonna work through it. So
yeah, yeah, it's so powerful. Every little like win and every little experience where you just realize like, oh, I've been like holding this part of myself back, or I've been, denying a part of myself, and then to kind of like reveal it, work through something, work through energy, work through like physical pain, even sometimes. Like I know sometimes like emotions for me to like appear as kind of like physical, pain, and moving through those, working through that. Every little bit of progress like can make a huge difference. So for sure, it's worth it.
definitely,
No matter how
definitely.
long it takes. But cool. And yeah, and our next one is it's okay to lean on someone, which I really like this one. And I remember like Latoya, you bringing this up as it's okay to, have a friend or have even counseling, therapy, a professional who you can talk this out with. So I know I had help with that. And I feel like, we both know that's kind of a big part of working through stuff. So
Oh yeah, definitely. I know I went through therapy in Las Vegas, and I mean, just that's a form of getting it out, because when we keep stuff inside, like, you really can't like heal because it's that energy is trapped in you, I feel like. And so once you
mhm.
finally start to like get it out to someone that you trust, like, then you can actually start to kind of like relax and just kind of like, okay, it's out of me now, So definitely, like, for those who feel comfortable with that, like whether it's a friend or even like getting professional help in that area, like I say, go for it. Go for it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I like how you put that because yeah, sometimes we can internalize something so much. At least I know for me, like we can internalize it so much that like our perspective on it can be skewed, or we might just be so set on something kind of being a certain way. And once you get it out into the open and you have somebody to like bounce that off of, it like you can see something in a totally different way. It may be
Yeah.
easier to heal from it. It may be easier to like, accept it or cope with it once you have that support system, or once you have somebody to, like a sounding board to kind of like relay things. And yeah, even at an energetic level, like you're saying, it's like getting the energy out is what you're doing when you're kind of like speaking about it and expressing it. So
Yeah, I
so
totally
powerful.
agree
Yeah.
with that. I totally agree with that, especially the someone maybe giving you a different perspective and kind of giving you a different way of looking at it and like, oh, And like that can totally shift your whole mindset about it. Like that's pretty powerful what you just said.
Hmm. Cool, cool. I know. Yeah, I think like even just um physically like getting the energy out and physically getting that trapped feeling, because even with any type of shadow, I guess, it's usually the worst part about it is that we've kind of like ignored it and not given it the attention that it needed, or tried to like push it away, but it still was part of us, or still kind of like trapped in our body, like you were saying. So so yeah, sometimes that's kind of like the definition of a shadow almost, is it's just trapped there, but we haven't given it the like nurturing or the intention or the comforting that it really needs. So
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. So one thing, so number 4 for us, we mentioned triggers, and that triggers may come up. So yeah, how do you feel about that, or kind of what are your thoughts on triggers during shadow work?
Oh boy. Oh, they're the worst. This is just my personal opinion. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
for me or anyone watching, like we're like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are very sensitive souls. So anything could just trigger you at any moment, and like you could be bawling your eyes out or even getting angry. But those triggers are cues to remind you, like, hey, you gotta work on this. And it's okay. Like I had to kind of get used to the fact that it's okay. Like, because a lot of people, I feel like when triggers happen, we just have to push it away, ignore it, like you were saying earlier, or just like don't deal with it because like people are gonna look at you crazy, like, oh, you can't handle that. But really, those triggers are just cues, from your spiritual self to let you know, like, okay, you still need to work on it. It's okay. Give yourself time, give yourself the permission to work through this area or whatnot. So they're pretty painful, but I don't know. I feel like they're necessary so that you know what you need to work on. What do you think?
Yeah, that I totally resonate with that completely. It's part of like even just beginning shadow work, I feel like is exactly what you described. It's like facing these things, and getting comfortable with things that feel very uncomfortable, and welcoming it in, or at least like giving yourself a moment to face them, or really like dissect it and see like what is it trying to tell me, versus like, oh, I like that's too much. I don't want to face that at all. And then kind of like pushing it away again. So yeah, like that is so difficult in itself. Like you're explaining, like it's so difficult in itself just to like make that one kind of this decision between um turning away again from what your body or what that trigger is trying to tell you, versus like facing it head on and saying like, okay, this is just a reaction, like I'm safe, I'm okay, but I need to kind of like sit with this energy and see what is it trying to tell me. And usually, like, or not usually, but I almost feel like every time it's just trying to help you, because the energy, even like a negative feeling, is just trying to give you a heads up, like maybe somebody crossed a boundary or something happened that you weren't comfortable with. It's letting you know what you're feeling, and giving you that like alarm almost, to say like, hey, this is something that either maybe it's not that like you leave the situation, but you just acknowledge maybe the situation is triggering because of a different situation that happened a while ago, which maybe actually we should talk a little bit about like what a trigger actually is, because I don't know if it appears for different people, but I would say like being triggered is maybe like being in a situation, and whether or not that situation is technically like bad, or like a negative situation or not. Like you may just be watching a TV show, or just like talking to somebody, or and see something or hear something, or whatever that may be, that kind of like triggers or sets off an emotional response, or kind of like a panic, like fight or flight mode response,
Yeah.
because like it reminds you of something that happened to you previously, right? I think
Yeah.
that kind of covers it. Maybe I missed something.
Oh no,
But
that hits it right
okay.
on the head. That does. That you explained that perfectly.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. I definitely unfamiliar with it.
Yeah.
We're all familiar with it. It's like, yeah. So triggers happen, and it's part of shadow work. And I think too, like this is such a good one because, and I'm so glad you brought it up, Latoya, because being triggered can be really scary in the moment, and it can make you feel like either you're going crazy or you're in danger. And so the fact that it is such a part of shadow work, I think it's really important to like talk about these things and let other people know, you're not going crazy. And it also, I'd be curious to hear your experiences too, but I know that for me, the more I did face them and the more I worked with that energy, like the better it really did get for me. And the way you explained it is kind of what I did to kind of work through it. So how have you been feeling like too with triggers and kind of what worked for you?
So I still have them with certain things. Like there was something really traumatic that actually happened to me like when I was like in the adolescent age. And once I finally like worked through that, certain things that kind of remind me of that, I was able to just like, okay, this did happen to me, but it's not happening to me right now. And so, but other things, other things still kind of trigger me, like just without going too deep, like family situations or like mother-daughter relationships that I'll see on TV, like I'll just still like bawl, like crying or whatnot. But then it's like, okay, I let it out. It's a trigger. And then I have to tell myself, like, okay, this is just a reflection of the past. This is not going on like right at the moment. So I hope like that example helped because like those
Uh-huh.
triggers will just they're there to tell you, hey, you still need to work on this, but it's also telling you like, okay, assess your reality right now. This is not your reality, and that way I really hope that that can help someone like, okay, if you could really be aware that whatever you're seeing or hearing may set you back to an event, it's not going on in this present time. So I really hope that that helps someone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hit the nail on the head with that too. Yeah. Um, and that's like too, it's like it's the most difficult things you can do that you're able to now do, during that moment is like to see like, okay, like I'm kind of to comfort yourself and like, like I've been there too, where I'm like, okay, like, this feeling or this energy is kind of like rising up again in me because it's getting triggered. And yeah, finding a way to talk yourself through it um, is what makes you stronger in the long run
Mhm.
too. So yeah.
Definitely.
Well, yeah. So number 5, I think, did you want to move on, or did you did you have anything else with
Oh
triggers?
no, I was looking
Okay,
down. I was looking down my notes
cool,
too.
cool. Okay, yeah. It's like there's so much. I do feel like there's so much to talk about in general with like each one of these too. So I'm sure we'll kind of bounce around. But number 5, so that's it might get worse before it gets better is that one, and I felt like to be honest, we gotta put it in there and say like, it's not always going to be easy and it's not always going to be a constant progression either, if
Yeah.
that makes sense too. Yeah. So I guess for me, when I kind of see that one, it's like reminding that even if it feels like it got worse, that doesn't mean that you haven't had so much progress along the way too. Even if in that moment, like it feels like, especially even with like triggers might feel like you get set back, like we can feel
Yeah.
like we get set back when we get like a really bad trigger that we haven't had before. But and I just remembered something else that I wanted to say. But I was listening to you so intently, I was like, it just like went out of my mind. But kind of to add to what you were saying before, it's like we can see it as an opportunity, even though it might be hard to do that, and I totally get that too. But I feel like when I kind of see a difficult emotion or difficult situation as like an opportunity to get even better, to feel better, um, then those emotions aren't quite as scary anymore. Um, so I found that helpful as like shifting the mindset on that. So when yeah, when you're like feeling like things just got worse, or like I don't feel as well as I was feeling, it doesn't mean that it's everything's been lost. It's just another opportunity to get even deeper with it and to get even better and
Yeah.
feel better. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you feel that way.
Yeah, definitely. As you was saying that, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, like the worst part, I was thinking like it's really the emotions that we don't like we ignore because like a lot of us don't want to feel or like feel bad or feel angry. And it's like you're going into like uncharted territory. So like for for this whole shadow work part, like yeah, it is scary. It is gonna get pretty bad because a lot of us just avoid it, We don't
Yeah.
want to feel that or so
And it's
I don't
built
know.
up.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
built up like over time too,
Yeah.
right? So it's like years worth of
Yeah.
ignoring certain things and like letting it kind of build up and build up. And then now we're kind of trying to work through all that. So it's like, take your time, like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when you kind of put it in perspective. I mean, I know for me, like I had a difficult childhood, was in a difficult relationship for 11 years right afterwards, pretty much, like getting out of my house and everything. Um, so that's a lot of like time of even though I was still working on myself through that time, there was clearly like a lot that I still needed to work on, which was crazy. Is kind of, and I've kind of posted about it before, I think, on my channel, but like getting out of that relationship made me realize, and kind of like reflecting on that made me realize like how much I still did need to work on because I had kind of gotten myself into that situation, unfortunately. So, but I've used it as like a learning, I know like it's like I feel like it's important to not always be like everything's going to be light and love all the time, as spiritual as like I am, like as much as I like love like that spiritual journey as well, and like believe in like the light always winning out and being like the most powerful part of it. But I'd be denying myself if I were to say that like it was never difficult, or that there's never anything difficult to like face throughout your spiritual journey too. So, and I think like that's part of why too, I'm so glad like we're talking about this subject, because I think it's important to like, as much as we want to stay positive, to also like be, aware that there's negative things, sides or energies to things too, but it's in our power to work through them and to kind of bring them to light, and to not deny them anymore. So yeah, so I think that's kind of what my shadow work journey has kind of looked like. It's ongoing, but also like
Yeah.
appreciating that there is always more to learn. It's always
Yeah.
good to like stay a pupil or stay a student throughout your life. So you're always like
Definitely.
open, at least I feel like, so that you're at least open to always learning something new. So
Definitely. I totally agree.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, so that's our 1 through 5. But we do have 5 more tips that we are going to talk about over on Latoya's channel. So if you are interested in checking that out, I'm going to link our video for Latoya's channel down below in the description box, where we can continue this conversation with the rest of our tips and thoughts on shadow work and a survival guide, getting through it. So that's going to do it for this video, though. I will see you guys back again soon, and hopefully I'll see you over on Latoya's channel. But bye for now.
Bye.